something that everybody should aspire to do, to make a contribution to this great nation for the good of everybody. And if you don't know the difference between what's right and what's wrong, just open your mind up.
In depth, uncensored, and unchained. It's Dave Mustaine in the INFOWARS.com interview.
I remember we had people die in Castle Donington. We had people die when we did Rock in Rio. And I went out there, I showed up in a neck brace, you know, and everybody's there going like, oh my God, what's happening, what's happening? I said, well, so-and-so called me this, and, you know, I just want to show him that he's that. I don't want to play with any satanic bands. I'll play with bands that have darkness in them because we all have a little darkness in us or we wouldn't be human. But guys that are confessed Satanists and, you know, I just don't really have time for that. I can't take any credit for James's songwriting ability or his guitar playing. He blew my mind when he picked up the guitar the first time because he used to just sing. And I did all the guitar playing and in fact, I talked between every song too. And when he picked up the guitar the first time, I remember watching him and I was like, oh my God, this guy's really, really good. And in fact, it almost intimidated me. You know, the road got smooth and my career's turned around. I got my best friend back playing bass with me. My kids like me. You know, traffic's gotten better. You know, it's just a whole complete paradigm shift. And
the universe lays before you. It's a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll.
That's right.
Coming to the InfoWar, Thursday, March 15th.
Out of the comfort zone because these people aren't playing games. 9/11 was an inside job. 9/11 was an inside job. 9/11 was an inside job.
We're going to organize. Humanity's going to come together. We are swinging muskets here, toe-to-toe with the globalists. They're bloodied. We're bloodied. It is absolute total war.
And we are back from break on the InfoWars Nightly News. Now, of course, you just saw the promo teaser for Dave Mustaine, the exclusive interview Alex Jones conducted. You haven't seen Dave Mustaine talk about a lot of these topics before. That's going to be released coming up. What, again, is the date on that, guys? That's going to be on Thursday, March 15th. So look for that, but just a teaser there. Now, as we move on to the next segment of news, let's just keep in mind that we've been in a, quote, parallel zone since 9/11. We've been in an alternate history, a twilight zone, if you will. And so let me just bring this up from December 1, 2002. In Terror War, a second track for suspects, the Bush administration is developing a parallel legal system in which terrorism suspects, U.S. citizens and non-citizens alike, may be investigated, jailed, interrogated, tried, and punished without legal protections, guaranteed by the ordinary system lawyers inside and outside the government say. And so you've got this entire alternate parallel system hinged on the ill definition of what the war is or who the enemy is. It's hinged on the idea that it could be transferred at any point to the general population. And that's why you see it developing in this way under Obama. And by the way, it's the classic tyranny practiced by Stalin, Hitler, and countless other despots where they pretended to pass laws to go after certain enemies, then really mention of that particular enemy just disappears as they persecute whoever their favorite enemy is or the general population or both. And so you see more and more of that, not only with Obama and company, again, saying they can go to war on behalf of the United Nations or other international bodies, but you see more of this talk of how it's okay to state sponsor a killing on American soil, to indefinitely detain under NDAA without any kind of due process or even letting people know what they're charged with or ever seeing the light of day. And again, all that was legitimized under Bush for shadowy jihadists, for Arabic or Muslim people who might be involved in this greater war and some kind of plot. And now it's just Americans. FBI director fails to refute state-sponsored murder of American citizens on U.S. soil. And you've got FBI director Robert Mueller unable to acknowledge how they're able to deal with this under the Constitution, says he's going to have to look into it. Well, it's just due process. It's in the Bill of Rights. It's in the Constitution, and it really should be common sense. Let's cue that video right now.
But what about targeting people on U.S. soil? Can they now kill American citizens inside the country? The head of the FBI, when asked about that on Capitol Hill yesterday, stumbled around on this.
Does that only apply to U.S. citizen that's overseas, or does that apply to U.S. citizen that's here?
I'd have to go back. I'm not certain whether that was addressed or not.
So that we have clarity.
And then you've got Paul Joseph Watson in his report commenting that a parallel legal system, the kind we talked about, is nothing more than a euphemism for dictatorship in which government claims it could create its own laws and murder anyone it likes without presenting any evidence. And so what you see here is they've passed the NDAA law allowing for the indefinite detention of citizens. But you've got Obama, knowing it's a politically hot issue, passing around that hot potato, first saying he's not going to pass the bill, first saying he tried to talk Congress out of that language when Carl Levin revealed that the Obama administration had to put in the language. Then he said he wouldn't sign it. Then he waited to sneakily sign it on New Year's Eve. Then he issued a signing statement saying he wouldn't allow it to apply to Americans, even though it does. Then he issued the policy directive saying it doesn't apply to Americans. None of that has to do with the so-called law they put on paper and passed through the Congress. That is still on paper. It's still a tyranny. And even if Obama somehow was a good guy, even though he's a constitutional scholar and just lies and circumvents around the Constitution like all these other creatures, you still can't trust who's going to be in power in the future when you put these laws on the books. But it's not an accident. The same way you see Mueller skirting this issue and countless other figures over the years is just like that classic case, and I want to play this video now, from 2006 when you had Michael Hayden, who was simultaneously head of the CIA and the NSA, trying to tell a reporter the Fourth Amendment didn't include probable cause when it's right there on paper. It's easy to read, but he claims he's the expert. He's the expert because he can, with a straight face, tell you it doesn't apply anymore, tell you it's not even in the language, written, printed on paper. Let's play it.
My understanding is that the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution specifies that you must have probable cause to be able to do a search that does not violate an American's right against unlawful searches and seizures.
Actually, the Fourth Amendment actually protects all of us against unreasonable search and seizure.
But
that's what it says.
The measure is probable cause, I believe.
The amendment says unreasonable search and seizure.
But does it not say probable? The
court
standard, the legal standard,
search and seizure.
the legal standard is probable cause.
So again, we're dealing with people with the audacity to say, no, it doesn't say probable cause when it clearly does. Now, it's not just that the FBI director, Robert Mueller, couldn't talk about the NDAA provision and the ability declared by the administration that they can kill even an American citizen on American soil. He can't comment on that. He also couldn't comment on why the FBI decided to release Anwar al-Awlaki in 2002, even though he was on the FBI watch list, even though he knew at least 3 of the accused 9/11 hijackers had contacts to him and continue to have all these contacts. But they decided to release him, even though he had the passport fraud thing going on, and at least they asked him questions about that. And so you've got the article explaining how the House Homeland Security Committee launched an official investigation into the cleric and his 9/11 connections last year. But sources tell Fox News the committee staffers have been frustrated by the FBI's resistance to providing documents and witnesses, citing ongoing investigations. However, they also quoted former FBI agents in this Fox News article who were familiar with al-Awlaki's reentry in October 2002, and they say only two scenarios seem to explain what happened. The FBI was tracking the cleric for intelligence, or the FBI was working with the cleric and saw him as a friendly contact. Now, we know, because of what they've previously released, that al-Awlaki was dining at the Pentagon with top brass in the months after 9/11, despite the fact he knew all these hijackers. And then he was allowed to go. The FBI can't explain why, only so he could develop into this shadowy al-Qaeda boogeyman, and so he could have connections to all their other false flag operative assets and all the other smaller attacks, the Fort Hood shooting, the underwear bomber, Richard Reed, the shoe bomber, all total bull. And so what do you have here? You have Mueller, who wants to not explain, but somehow still legitimize the president's declared power to executively assassinate even American citizens, even on American soil. Even as they let go the man they had to target by drone, al-Awlaki, and a 16-year-old son, by the way, in Yemen, under similar powers they were about to expand under NDAA. What an interesting connection, that they have a total intelligence operative asset paving the way for all this crazy legislation. Anwar al-Awlaki, just look at how he dined at the Pentagon. Absolutely outrageous. Now here we have another story about LulzSec, and yet it's not that different because it's another aspect of the government's power grab under false flag powers, this time in the cybersecurity online realm. Kurt Nemo's report, LulzSec's FBI informant leader hinted at CIA connection. So you've got the leader of LulzSec now taken down, who turned out to be an FBI operative, kind of joking and wishy-washying with the London Guardian reporter on whether or not he was connected to the CIA. That is Sabu, also known as Hector Xavier Monsegur. Sabu began by denouncing the Guardian's publication on the vague allegations of the supposed Islamic links of the hacker community. Then he switched tasks, asking why the paper hadn't published rumors linking him to the CIA, arguing that it would amount to an equivalent but equally inaccurate allegation. Given what we now know, the swerve is particularly noteworthy. After denying he worked for the CIA, Sabu told the reporter it would make sense from a false flag perspective if a rogue group of hackers suddenly began attacking national interest, spawning a massive overhaul of internet security theoretically. And that's exactly what you see. You see a bunch of anonymous groups and LulzSec groups who can rarely be pinned down to certain individuals. When they are pinned down, you've got leaders in those groups being FBI informants. And of course, they're attacking government interest and top corporate interest. Only so General Keith Alexander, who's now the head of the NSA and of the cybercom security, able to make the case that they need to be able to shut down the web, take out people unilaterally, pass the kind of ACTA-type treaties, the type of SOPA and people legislation that has been fought against, but a battle which is surely not over because they want those powers over the internet. You could see it here. You could see it. And that's all I'm going to say. In other news, the AP, the Associated Press, is reporting that Coke and Pepsi are having to make changes to avoid a cancer warning. There's been a new law in California banning a certain amount of the chemical 4-methyl-limidazole that is used in these soft drinks, and they're having to reformulate the caramel coloring so it doesn't contain the cancer-causing agent. Of course, they want to tell you it's safe, don't worry. A representative from Coca-Cola, Diane Garza Ciarlante, said the company directed its caramel suppliers to modify their manufacturing processes to reduce the levels of the chemical 4-methyl-limidazole, which can be formed during the cooking process and as a result may be found in trace amount of Whole Foods. But there's no danger, nothing to worry about. The FDA is out to look out for our best interest and take the vaccines and the GMO foods, and don't look twice. In other health news, you've got a mystery illness killing 3 family members, one of them an 81-year-old grandmother, the other two adult children who were looking after her, and a third child also sick. And they're saying it is a mix between a micro